Alright, I'm going to show you how to make your alphabet based on basic shapes. First, when you open Illustrator, click Create New. I'm on Recent. My most recent was Letter. Yours is probably the same, but you can go to Print. We just want a normal letter size sheet of paper and change the orientation to horizontal. Everything else can stay the same. Click Create. For this, we want to be able to see a grid. So you can measure things out. And possibly rulers as well. So if you go under View and go down to Show Grid or Command apostrophe, this will bring you a grid. And we're going to create our shapes over on the artboard before we put them into your page. Another helpful guide is rulers. So if you go up to View again, Rulers, Show Rulers. This is in pixels, but you can change this to inches under Illustrator Preferences if you'd like to. So if you go to Illustrator Preferences and Units, you can change it from points or pixels to inches. Click OK. That's under General. So we can see kind of two sets of grid lines. There's like a, well, it's hard to see when I zoom in, but a darker and a lighter one on the paper. You want to create each letter out of basic shapes, and they should be using the same shapes over and over again. For example, I'm going to start by creating a square, and you can hold down Shift to make sure it's a perfect square. You'll see that diagonal line show up. And I'm just going to fill this in with a color. Fill. And the shapes, every letter could basically be made from a triangle, square, rectangle, and circle. But then you can alter those as you want. The point is that they should be as uniform as possible. So if I also want to create a rectangle, I'm going to copy and paste this, and then I know it's the exact same dimensions. And I'm going to look at my grid, but now instead of it being 8 little grid boxes wide, I'm going to make it 2. With a circle, I'm going to create a circle that's the same size as the square. So I'm going to go right over the top left corner, hold down Shift to make it a perfect circle, bring it to the bottom right hand corner. So you really want all of your geometry to be uniform. Now as you start to create your letters, you may see that you want to create some other shapes, but try to keep it to a minimum. I'm going to make a triangle. I'm going to do that by making this base the same width, and then I'm going to try to go right in the middle for the top point. You can see a purple line shows up when I'm right at the midsection of the upper line. Okay, so I'm going to, oops, I didn't close off that shape. I need to close this triangle off in order for it to be its own shape. Alright, I'm going to start with these and then I'll make more as I need to, but I want you to be creative. You can change the colors the way you want, transparencies, but just start to build it. The main idea is like keep the math or the geometry, the dimensions as similar as possible. So I'm going to start with an A. I could make a really simple A that's just sort of a triangle. I could make an A that is a lowercase a, like this. A lot of different options for how you could create an A. I think I'm going to start with the triangle. I'm going to go for more uppercase letters, but that's really up to you. Now I need to cut out the bottom section of this to make it look more like an A. So I'm going to duplicate my triangle, and I'm going to make this a little smaller. And I'm going to make like just a really minimal geometric alphabet using these 2 triangles to start. The other really important menu you'll need is the Pathfinder. I'm going to use this to minus front and take out that bottom triangle. Alright, I think that works for an A. Next up is my B. I'm going to copy and paste this circle. Now I want my B to be the same height as my A. So I'm going to make this circle be about half that size. Copy and paste it to duplicate it. Make sure they're perfectly aligned. You'll get little purple guidelines that show up when they're aligned, but you can also use the Align menu palette over here. I'm going to add this to it, and then I'm going to check and see, zoom in a little, if the width dimensions look pretty much the same. So I'm going to move this over here just so I can see what does it look like if I have it the same width as the A. It's kind of weird because it's going to be separated from my rectangle piece. So I want those touching. I want these aligned. I'm going to add my vertical bar. And then I'm going to try combining these to see how it looks. Now the point of this is it's an artistic alphabet, so it doesn't need to look exactly like the letter. You're creating your own kind of font, and how you do that is up to you. Next, I'm trying to move over here to get, I'm not used to using a mouse now. I'm going to create my C. So I can go on and on with this. Let me do one more letter so you get the idea, and then you can work on it on your own. But I want you to experiment with color. Right now I'm just sticking with yellow. Once I get all of my shape forms in here, I'll probably go back and play with the color. Alright, so I have two identical circles. I'm going to adjust the scale, and it kind of snaps to the halfway point. I want to line these up perfectly in the middle, so I'm going to select them both and align them vertically and horizontally with these align buttons. And then in the Pathfinder, I'm going to cut out the overlapping shape, or a minus front. If you don't remember what all of these do, that's fine. Just play around with it until you get them. Now I'm going to go back and grab my rectangle, copy and paste it. I'm using the key commands a lot, so Command C, Command V. I'm going to cut out this part to make a C. So if you hover until you get this curved arrow, you can rotate, and if you hold shift, it's going to snap to exactly vertical. And then I'm going to select these two shapes and minus front again. More of a traditional C. But I can keep going with this. I don't want you to do it exactly how I did. I just want you to see how I'm using the same shapes over and over and over again to create my letters. You should never use maybe more than 4 or 5 shapes. If they're different than mine, that's fine. When you're done, you should have every letter of the alphabet. I put some examples of Seesaw, of some kind of geometric alphabets, and this will be really helpful with your next project, which is creating a logo design. When you're finished, you need to save it as an Illustrator file for you, put it in your graphic design folder on your drive. I like for you to name it as your last name, whatever the project, for organization's sake. We haven't talked too much about file management, but it's a good habit to get into. I'm going to save it to my graphic design folder and then leave the options. To upload it to Seesaw, I need to export it. So File, Export As. This is going to compress it into an image file. Quite a few of these will work. A PNG would work. I just tend to use JPEG because it's good quality. I'm going to save this to the desktop so I can easily find it and upload it. I could also put a copy in to my folder later. And then for quality, you could do higher maximum for this. Click OK. All right, have fun. Bye.